baby's scream pierced through the marble corridors of the Kang estate at 2 in the morning, sharp enough to wake the entire West Wing. Amelie pressed her hand over her daughter's mouth, her heart hammering against her ribs as she backed into the supply closet. The mop bucket clattered. Too loud. Everything was too loud. "Please," she whispered in Zulu, rocking the infant desperately. "Please, my love. Not tonight." But the baby only screamed harder, her tiny face contorted in rage or terror. Amelie could never tell which anymore. 6 months old, and her daughter had never known peace. Never smiled. Never quieted except in exhausted sleep. The doctors called it colic. The nannies called it a curse. Amelie called it her punishment. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Heavy, purposeful. Security. Amelie's throat closed. She'd been warned 3 times already. One more complaint and she'd lose this job. One more job lost meant no rent. No rent meant the streets. The streets meant they'd take her baby, and she'd disappear into the system like so many women before her. The footsteps passed. The baby screamed on. If you're already hooked by this mystery, hit that subscribe button now, because this story is about to take you somewhere you won't expect. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. Amelie had been invisible for 2 years, and she'd perfected the art of it. She cleaned the floors that billionaires walked on, polished the windows that framed their empire, and scrubbed the toilets that flushed away their excess. She wore the same gray uniform every night, kept her hair covered, and never, ever, made eye contact. The Kang Corporation estate sprawled across 40 acres of Seoul's most expensive real estate, a fortress of steel and glass that housed the family's private quarters, corporate offices, and enough security to rival a presidential compound. Old money wrapped in new violence. Everyone knew what the Kang family really was. Everyone pretended they didn't. Amelie worked the graveyard shift because it paid 20% more and because ghosts didn't ask questions. She arrived at 11, left at 7, and spoke to no one except the other cleaners. Mostly older Korean women who'd learned not to see her, either. But the baby had changed everything. She tried leaving her daughter with a neighbor. The woman returned the baby after one night, claiming the child was possessed by something angry. She tried a childcare center. They'd called her after 40 minutes, begging her to come back. She'd even tried medication, but the pediatrician had looked at her with such pity that Amelie had walked out before he could finish his sentence. So now the baby came to work, hidden in a modified cleaning cart, surrounded by towels to muffle the sound, a bottle wedged in her mouth to buy minutes of silence. It was illegal. It was dangerous. It was the only option left. "You hear about the boss?" Mina CEO, one of the older cleaners, whispered as they passed in the 3rd-floor hallway. "He's coming back tonight." Amelie's blood went cold. "Tonight? I thought he was in Tokyo until next week." "Meeting got cancelled. He'll be here by midnight." Mina CEO glanced around nervously. "If I were you, I'd keep that baby quiet. You know how he is about disruptions." Amelie knew. Everyone knew. Kang Joon-hyuk didn't tolerate imperfection, didn't tolerate noise, didn't tolerate anything that reminded him the world contained people instead of assets. She'd seen him exactly twice in 2 years. Once from 50 feet away, his silhouette cutting through the lobby like a blade. Once in a photograph the staff had been forced to memorize. Lean face, sharp jaw, eyes that look through you rather than at you. 38 years old. Never married. No children. No scandals. No humanity. The whispers said he'd killed his first man at 19. The rumors said he felt nothing. The truth, Amelie suspected, was worse than either. Midnight came with the sound of engines. Amelie was on the 5th floor, cleaning the executive conference room, when she heard the convoy pull through the gates. 3 black SUVs. Bulletproof. Tinted. The kind of vehicles that appeared in news footage after someone important died. The baby stirred in her cart. "No," Amelie breathed, abandoning her mop to kneel beside the cart. "Not now. Please, not now." Her daughter's eyes opened dark, impossible eyes that seemed too knowing for an infant. Her mouth opened. Amelie shoved the bottle between her lips, but the baby spat it out. Tried the pacifier. Rejected. Tried rocking, humming, the desperate bounce sway that sometimes bought 30 seconds. The baby's face reddened. Her back arched. "Please," Emily whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please, my heart. Mama needs you to be quiet. Just this once. Just tonight." The scream that came out could have shattered glass. Joon-hyuk heard it the moment he stepped into the lobby. A baby. Crying. Here. His head of security, Chin-ho, stiffened immediately. "Sir, I'll handle." "Where?" Joon-hyuk's voice was flat. Empty. The voice he used right before someone lost their job. Or worse. 5th floor. One of the cleaning staff. "We've had complaints before, but you let it continue?"
Chin-ho siap tightened.
"We've been monitoring the situation. The woman is a hard worker. No other issues. We thought. You're not paid to think. You're paid to maintain order." Joon-hyuk moved toward the elevator, his lieutenants falling into formation behind him. "I want her identification pulled. I want to know why a cleaner thinks my building is a nursery." The elevator rose in silence. Joon-hyuk's reflection stared back at him from the polished steel. Expensive suit, dead eyes, the face his father had trained him to wear. Feel nothing, want nothing, control everything. The crying grew louder as they reached the 5th floor. Joon-hyuk followed the sound the way a predator follows blood. Through the executive wing, past the conference room, to a supply closet with the door half open, light spilling out. He pushed it wide. The woman inside nearly fell backward. Young, maybe 25, 26. Dark skin, darker eyes, currently wide with terror. She clutched a baby to her chest, the infant's face purple with rage and tears. "I'm sorry," the woman stammered in Korean, her accent thick but understandable. "I'm so sorry. She's usually quiet. I'll leave. Silence," Joon-hyuk said. The woman's mouth snapped shut. The baby kept screaming. Joon-hyuk stared at the child, something cold and sharp moving through his chest. 6 months old, maybe. Small. Angry. Alive in a way that seemed almost violent. "You bring an infant to a corporate building," he said quietly, each word precise. "You disrupt my staff. You violate every safety protocol. You." The baby's eyes locked on his. And then, impossibly, she went silent. Not gradually. Not soothing into quiet. Just stopped. Mid-scream. As if someone had cut the sound. The woman gasped. Chin-ho took a step forward. "Sir." Joon-hyuk raised one hand. "Wait." The baby stared at him. Just stared. Her tiny chest still heaving from the crying. Tears still wet on her face. But silent. Utterly silent. And then she reached for him. "No," the woman whispered. "No, don't. She doesn't do that. She doesn't." But the baby was already stretching her arms out, fingers grasping air, making the soft grunting sounds infants make when they want to be held. Joon-hyuk felt something crack in his chest. Some wall he'd built so carefully it had become load-bearing. "Sir, you don't have to," Chin-ho started. Joon-hyuk reached out and took the baby. She was lighter than he expected. Warm. Fragile. She settled against his chest immediately, her head tucking under his chin. Her crying stopped completely. Within 30 seconds, her breathing had slowed. Within a minute, she was asleep. The room had gone silent. For security guards, one terrified mother, and Joon-hyuk holding a baby who'd just done the impossible. "What's her name?" Joon-hyuk heard himself ask. The woman looked like she might faint.
Elangil.
It means good in Zulu. Lungeil, Joon-hyuk repeated softly. The baby stirred but didn't wake. "How long has she been like this?" The crying. "Since birth." The woman's voice cracked. "She cries for everyone. Doctors, nurses, family, everyone. She's never done this before." Joon-hyuk looked down at the sleeping infant, at her perfect, peaceful face, at the trust implicit in every breath. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. "You're not fired," he said finally. "But you don't bring her back here. Understood?" The woman nodded frantically. "Chin-ho will arrange for private childcare." Someone who can handle difficult infants. You'll continue your work. He carefully transferred the baby back to her mother. The moment the child left his arms, she began whimpering. The moment she touched her mother, the whimpering became crying. The woman looked at him with something between gratitude and horror. Joon-hyuk turned and walked away, his men following. Behind him, the baby's screams resumed, echoing through the corridor like an accusation. He didn't sleep that night. He stood in his penthouse suite, staring out at Seoul's glittering skyline, and felt the ghost of that baby's weight against his chest. 3 days passed. Joon-hyuk told himself he'd forgotten. Told himself it was a momentary anomaly, a coincidence, meaningless. On the 4th day, he found himself checking the cleaning schedules. Found himself noting that the woman, Amelie, her file said, Amelie Dlamini, South African national, work visa, clean background, work Tuesday through Saturday. On the 8th day, he walked through the 5th floor at 2 in the morning for no reason at all. The baby was there. He could hear her crying from 3 corridors away. He found Amelie in a different supply closet, tears streaming down her face as she tried to comfort her daughter. The childcare he'd arranged had lasted 1 day before the provider quit. "Give her to me," Joon-hyuk said from the doorway. Amelie jumped, nearly dropping the baby. "Mr. Kang, I'm sorry, the childcare didn't." "Give her to me," he repeated. Amelie hesitated, then slowly extended her daughter. The baby stopped crying the moment Joon-hyuk's hands touched her. By the time he'd settled her against his chest, she was cooing. "This is impossible," Amelie whispered. "Yes," Joon-hyuk agreed. He looked down at Lunjile, at her wide, trusting eyes. "Do you believe in genetic memory?" What? "The theory that we inherit more than DNA, that we carry our ancestors' experiences, their traumas, their recognitions." He touched the baby's hand, watched her tiny fingers curl around his. "That we know people we've never met." Amelie went very still. "Why would you ask that?" "Because this child knows me," Joon-hyuk said quietly. "And I don't know why." For 2 weeks it became a routine. Joon-hyuk would find Amelie during his late-night returns, take the baby for 20 minutes, let her sleep against his chest while he read reports or made calls. The infant never cried in his arms, never fussed. Sometimes she'd grab his tie or his finger, staring at him with those 2 knowing eyes. He told himself it was charity. Told himself he was simply solving a problem efficiently. He was lying. "You're spending a lot of time on the 5th floor, his brother Junwoo observed during a family dinner. "The staff is talking." "The staff always talks," Joon-hyuk replied, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "They say there's a cleaning woman, a baby." Junwoo's smile was sharp. "Very unlike you, Hyung. Since when do you care about the help?" "I don't." Joon-hyuk met his brother's eyes. "I care about disruption." The child was disrupting operations. "I've addressed it." "By holding her every night?" Joon-hyuk's knife stopped moving. "Careful. I'm just saying," Junwoo continued, leaning back. "It's interesting, given your history." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "My history," Joon-hyuk said softly, "is none of your concern." "Of course." Junwoo raised his wine glass. "But you know what father would say. Attachments are weaknesses. Especially to..." "Finish that sentence and I'll break your jaw." Junwoo laughed, but there was nervousness in it. "Relax, Hyung. I'm just curious. What's so special about this baby?" Joon-hyuk didn't answer because he didn't know. Or rather, he knew, but the answer was impossible. That night, he asked Amelie the question that had been burning in his mind. "The father," he said, watching Lunjile sleep against his chest. "Where is he?" Amelie's face went carefully blank. "Gone. Dead or gone. Does it matter?" "It might." Joon-hyuk kept his voice gentle, but he knew interrogation, knew how to read the microscopic tells. "You came to Korea 2 years ago, started working here 18 months ago, had the baby 6 months ago. The timeline suggests you were already pregnant when you arrived." Amelie's hands clenched. "I don't want to talk about him. Did he hurt you?"
No.
The word came too quickly. He didn't know. About her. I left before I could tell him. Why? Because some men are dangerous to love, Amelie said quietly. Because some worlds eat people like me alive. Because I wanted my daughter to have a chance at a life that didn't end in violence. Joon-hyuk felt those words like a blade between his ribs. What was his name? I can't tell you that. Can't or won't. Both. Amelie's eyes finally met his. And Joon-hyuk saw something there that made his chest tighten. Fear. Not of him. Of the truth. Please, Mr. Kang. Don't ask me questions I can't answer. Don't make me lie to you. Then tell me the truth. The truth, Amelie whispered, will destroy everything. Joon-hyuk began investigating 3 days later. Quietly. Personally. Using resources that didn't officially exist. Amelie Dlamini, 26 years old. Born in Durban, South Africa. Moved to Seoul 24 months ago on a work visa sponsored by a staffing agency. No family in Korea. No friends. No connections. But before Korea, blank spaces. Months unaccounted for. Travel records that didn't quite align. And one medical record from a private clinic in Gangnam dated 7 months before Lunjail's birth. Prenatal checkup. No father listed. The clinic had closed 6 months ago. Convenient. Joon-hyuk pulled the ownership records. Shell Corporation. And behind that shell, another shell. And behind that, his father's name. Joon-hyuk sat in his office at 4 in the morning, staring at that name, feeling the floor drop out from under him. His father had owned the clinic where Amelie had received prenatal care. His father had owned the staffing agency that brought her to Korea. His father, who'd been dead for 8 months, had created a paper trail that led directly to this woman and her child. Why? The answer hit him like a bullet. No.
Impossible.
Joon-hyuk stood, crossed to his private safe, and pulled out a folder he hadn't opened in 7 years. Medical records, hospital bills, autopsy reports. 7 years ago there'd been a woman. Her name had been Ji-young. She'd worked in one of his father's subsidiaries. She'd been beautiful and kind and everything Joon-hyuk hadn't known he needed. She'd also been pregnant. His father had discovered the relationship and moved to end it. Forcefully. Permanently. There'd been an accident. A car crash. Ji-young had been 8 months pregnant. They tried to save the baby, but Joon-hyuk closed his eyes, the memory rising like poison. The child didn't survive, the doctor had told him.
I'm sorry.
There was too much trauma. The pregnancy was too far along. We did everything we could. Joon-hyuk had been 27 years old. He'd stood in that hospital corridor and felt something in him die alongside his child. He'd buried Ji-young, buried his unborn son or daughter, buried his heart, and he'd become what his father wanted. Cold, controlled, empty. But now, no, it was impossible. The child had died. The doctors had confirmed it. He'd seen the death certificate. Except his father had owned the hospital too. Joon-hyuk pulled up Lunjail's birth date. Did the math. Calculated backward. The timing was wrong. Off by 2 months. Relief hit him so hard he had to sit down. Then he recalculated, factoring in premature birth. Factoring in the possibility of medical intervention. Factoring in 7 years of lies. The timing was perfect. He grabbed his keys. Amelie was in the 4th floor break room when he found her. 5 in the morning, feeding Lunjail a bottle, singing softly in Zulu. She looked up when he entered, and whatever she saw in his face made her go pale. How old is she really? Joon-hyuk asked. Amelie's hand trembled. 6 months. I told you. Don't lie to me. He moved closer, keeping his voice level through sheer force of will. How old? Mr. Kang, I can have a DNA test done by noon. I can have your entire history pulled by sunset. I can have the truth by midnight. He knelt down so they were eye level. Or you can tell me right now, and we can skip the part where I destroy your life looking for answers. Amelie's eyes filled with tears. Lunjail, sensing her mother's distress, began whimpering. She's not 6 months old, Amelie whispered finally. She's 7 months. I lied on her birth certificate. I lied to everyone. Why? Because I was afraid. Of what? Of you. The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. Of your family. Of what you'd do if you knew. Joon-hyuk felt the world tilt. If I knew what? Amelie was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. 7 years ago, I worked at a medical facility in Gangnam. I was training to be a nurse. There was a woman brought in.
À car accident.
She was dying. She was pregnant. She kept saying a name over and over. Joon-hyuk. Tell Joon-hyuk. Save the baby. Tell Joon-hyuk. The air left Joon-hyuk's lungs. The doctors tried everything. Amelie continued, her voice breaking. They couldn't save her. But the baby was alive. Premature, fragile but alive. They did an emergency C-section. Your father was there. He gave orders. He said the baby died. He said to mark it as stillborn. He paid everyone in that room enough money to disappear.
No, Joon-hyuk whispered.
I couldn't let it happen. I couldn't watch him kill a baby just to control you. Amelie clutched Lunjile tighter. So I took her. I falsified records. I made it look like she died. I disappeared. I spent 7 years running, hiding, keeping her safe. And when your father died, I thought maybe I could come back. Maybe I could let her grow up near her father's city, even if he'd never know. Joon-hyuk couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at the baby in Amelie's arms. She's mine, he said. Not a question. A statement. A truth so massive it crushed everything else. Yes, Amelie whispered. She's yours. Lunjile chose that moment to reach for him, making the same grasping motions she always made. Joon-hyuk took her automatically, and she settled against his chest with a contented sigh. His daughter who'd been alive all this time. His daughter who'd been stolen from him. His daughter who'd grown up not knowing him, not bearing his name, not, why did you come back? His voice sounded destroyed even to his own ears. Why risk it? Because she needed to know where she came from, Amelie said. Because I couldn't keep running forever. Because, her voice broke completely. Because every time she cried, I knew she was crying for you. For something she'd lost before she even knew to miss it. Joon-hyuk looked down at his daughter. At her eyes, his eyes. At her expressions, his expressions. At the life he'd been robbed of. I'll kill them, he said softly. Everyone who helped him. Everyone who knew. Everyone who let this happen. Please don't. Amelie reached out, touched his arm. Please. She doesn't need more death in her life. She needs her father. I don't know how to be a father. Neither did I know how to be a mother. But we learn. We try. Amelie's composure finally shattered. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I kept her from you. I thought I was protecting her. But maybe I was just protecting myself. Maybe I was just scared. I'm so sorry. Joon-hyuk stood there holding his daughter, feeling 7 years of grief and rage and loss crash over him like a wave. He'd mourned her. He'd buried her in his heart. He'd become a monster because what did it matter, what did anything matter, when the only good thing he'd ever created was dead? Except she wasn't dead. She was here. She was real. She was sleeping against his chest like she'd been doing it her whole life. I don't want your apology, he said finally. I want time. All the time I've lost. I want. His voice cracked. I want to know her. You can, Amelie said immediately. Whatever you want. However you want. She's yours. I won't fight you. I could take her. Legally. I have the resources. The power. I could erase you from her life the way my father tried to erase her from mine. Amelie went very still. Yes, you could. Is that what you think I'll do? I don't know. She looked at him with those dark, exhausted eyes. I don't know you. I only know what men with power usually do. Joon-hyuk looked down at his daughter again. At the trust in every breath she took. Trust he hadn't earned. Trust that had somehow survived despite everything. Her name, he said quietly. Lunjile. Good. Did you know that's what her mother wanted to call her? Amelie's breath hitched. The woman in the hospital. She said that. In her last moments. She said, "Name her something good. Name her something that means we tried." Joon-hyuk's eyes burned. You gave her that. You gave her the name her mother wanted. You gave her life when everyone else chose death. His voice failed completely. They stood there in the break room as dawn broke outside. Two people holding the pieces of something beautiful and broken, trying to figure out how to make it whole. Leave a comment below about what you think Joon-hyuk should do next, because this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. The DNA test came back positive 3 days later, though Joon-hyuk had already known. Had known from the moment Lunjail went silent in his arms. Had known from the marrow of his bones. He'd spent those 3 days dismantling his father's legacy. Not the business empire that would take years, but the conspiracy, the doctors who'd lied, the staff who'd been paid off, the administrators who'd falsified records. He didn't kill them. That surprised him, too. The old Joon-hyuk would have burned them all and felt nothing. But every time he thought about violence, he felt Lunjail's weight against his chest. Heard Amelie's words. She doesn't need more death in her life. So instead, he ruined them. Financially, professionally, permanently. Left them alive but destroyed, which was perhaps crueler. Perhaps not. He didn't care. What he cared about was sitting in a penthouse suite he'd never used. Watching his daughter sleep in a crib he'd had installed overnight. Watching Amelie doze in the armchair beside her. Exhausted from a night of feeding and changing and all the small violences of infant care. He'd moved them both in without asking. Had simply sent Chin-ho to pack up Amelie's tiny apartment. One room, barely furnished, depressing in its emptiness. Had installed them in the guest suite. Had assigned security. Had hired a pediatrician. Had begun the process of legal recognition. Amelie had protested exactly once. He'd looked at her and said, "Would you rather raise her in that room, or let her have space to grow?" And she'd gone quiet, because what could she say? That she preferred poverty to his help? That she'd rather struggle than accept what he could provide? But there was tension between them now, unspoken but massive. He could see it in the way she watched him hold Lunjail, in the way she tensed whenever he made decisions about their daughter's care, in the way she kept her distance, as if afraid he'd consume them both if she got too close. She wasn't entirely wrong. "You don't have to do this," she said one night, 2 weeks after the truth had emerged. Lunjail was asleep. The penthouse was quiet. They were both exhausted. "Do what?" Joon-hyuk asked, not looking up from the legal documents he was reviewing, custody agreements, birth certificate amendments, trust fund establishment. "Pretend you want a family. Pretend you're someone you're not." Amelie's voice was soft but firm. "I know what you are, what you do, the life you live. You don't have to change that for us. You can just see her sometimes. Be present. You don't have to become a different person." Joon-hyuk set down his pen. "What if I want to?" "Want to what?" "Become a different person." He finally looked at her. "What if everything I was before was just what I built around the hole she left? What if I don't want to be that anymore?" Amelie studied him for a long moment. "People don't change that easily." "No," he agreed. "They don't. But maybe they can try." 3 months passed. Lunjail began crawling. Began babbling. Began showing preferences. Liked mashed bananas. Hated peas. Loved being tossed in the air and caught. Screamed during bath time unless Joon-hyuk sang to her. He sang. Badly. But she didn't care. He also began divesting from the family's more violent enterprises. Not publicly. Not obviously. But methodically. The gambling operations went first. Then the protection rackets. Then the loan sharking business that had funded 3 generations of Kang luxury. His brother noticed. "You're destroying father's legacy," Joon-woo said during a board meeting. "I'm modernizing it," Joon-hyuk replied calmly. "You're weakening us. I'm making us legitimate. Because of a baby?" Joon-woo's laugh was harsh. "Because of some cleaner's kid that you've convinced yourself is yours?" Joon-hyuk's hand moved so fast that none of the executives saw it coming. One moment Joon-woo was laughing. The next he was on the floor, blood streaming from his nose, Joon-hyuk's knee on his chest, and a knife. When had he pulled a knife? Pressed against his throat. Say that again, Joon-hyuk whispered. Question my daughter's legitimacy again. I dare you. Joon-woo went very, very still. Joon-hyuk stood, smoothing his suit. Meeting adjourned. Joon-woo, you're removed from the board effective immediately. Security will escort you out. No one argued. No one moved to help Joon-woo. That was how power worked in their world. You had it until you didn't. And Joon-woo had just lost his. That night, Amelie confronted him. Your brother is telling people you're unfit. That fatherhood has made you weak. She stood in the doorway of his home office, arms crossed. He's gathering allies. I know. You know? That's all you have to say. What would you like me to say? Joon-hyuk leaned back in his chair, studying her. That I'm worried? I'm not. Joon-woo is ambitious but stupid. He'll make a move. I'll crush it, and life will continue. Is that what you want? More violence? More power struggles? Amelie moved closer. Is that the world you want Lunjile to grow up in? No, Joon-hyuk said quietly. Which is why I'm ending it. By attacking your brother in front of your executives? By showing everyone that my loyalties have shifted. That threatening my family is more dangerous than threatening my business. He met her eyes. You want me to change? This is what change looks like in my world. It's not peaceful. It's not pretty. But it's real. Amelie looked at him for a long moment. I'm scared of you sometimes. Good. You should be. He said it gently without malice. I'm scared of me sometimes too. I'm scared of what I could become if I lost her again. If I lost. He stopped. If you lost what? Both of you, he finished quietly. The silence that followed was electric. I'm not yours to lose, Amelie said finally. I know. I'm not some prize you won by fathering a child. I know. I'm not. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm not going to fall in love with you just because you're being decent. I know, Joon-hyuk said again. But I'm going to keep being decent anyway. Not for you. For her. And maybe, he smiled, just slightly. Maybe for me too. 6 months after the truth emerged, Lunjile took her first steps. She walked from Amelie's arms to Joon-hyuk's, stumbling and laughing. And when she reached him, she said her first clear word. Appa. Father. Joon-hyuk caught her and felt something in his chest finally, fully break. He held his daughter and cried for the first time in 7 years. Ugly, wrenching sobs that he couldn't control and didn't try to. Amelie knelt beside them, her hand on his shoulder, and for the first time he felt like maybe he was building something instead of destroying it. The official recognition came 2 weeks later. Kang Lunjile, legally acknowledged daughter of Kang Joon-hyuk, heiress to the Kang Corporation, protected by resources that could topple governments. The press went insane. The tabloids screamed scandal. The business world buzzed with speculation. Who was the mother? Why had he hidden the child? What did this mean for succession? Joon-hyuk held a single press conference, said simply, I have a daughter. Her privacy and safety are my priority. Anyone who threatens either will face consequences. He didn't mention Amelie, didn't mention the circumstances, didn't explain the 7-year gap, just stated facts and walked away. The speculation continued, but the harassment stopped. Because everyone knew what consequences meant when a man like Joon-hyuk said it. What surprised everyone, including Joon-hyuk, was what came next. He created a foundation for children who'd been lost in the system, for mothers who'd had their babies stolen, for families torn apart by power and corruption. He funded it with $1 billion of his own money and staffed it with people who'd survived what Lunjile had survived. This is smart, his chief financial officer said. Good publicity. Softens your image. It's not about image, Joon-hyuk replied. It's about making sure what happened to my family never happens to anyone else. The CFO looked confused. Joon-hyuk didn't explain. How could he explain that every child saved was penance? That every family reunited was apology? That every mother protected was a tribute to both Amelie and Ji-young? He couldn't. So he just kept building. 1 year after the truth emerged, Lunjile learned to run. She ran everywhere. Through the penthouse, through the gardens, through the hallways of Kang Corporation headquarters where staff had learned to smile at her instead of fear her. She ran toward Joon-hyuk every time she saw him, arms outstretched, laughing with pure, uncomplicated joy. And every time he caught her, every time he lifted her up, every time he marveled that this was real, that she was real, that he'd been given a second chance he didn't deserve. But Amelie was pulling away. He noticed it in small ways first. The way she'd find reasons to leave rooms when he entered. The way she'd stopped meeting his eyes during dinner. The way she'd begun talking about when Lunjile is older, and when things are more settled, as if she were planning an exit strategy. He finally confronted her on a Tuesday night. Lunjile was asleep. The penthouse was quiet except for Seoul's distant hum. "You're leaving," he said. Not a question. Amelie was at the window staring out at the city. She didn't turn around. Eventually, yes. Why? Because this isn't sustainable. You and me living like this, playing house, pretending we're something we're not. What are we pretending? Joon-hyuk moved closer but didn't touch her. I'm her father. You're her mother. We're raising her together. What part of that is pretend? The part where you think this is normal, Amelie said, finally turning to face him. The part where you think I can just forget what you are, what you do, the people you've hurt, the lives you've destroyed. I'm changing. Are you? Her voice rose slightly. Or are you just performing change? Being good for your daughter while the violence continues somewhere out of sight. Joon-hyuk felt that land like a punch. That's not fair. Fair. Amelie laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? I spent 7 years running. 7 years terrified. 7 years lying to my daughter about who she was because I was protecting her from you. From your family. From this life. And now you want me to just what? Be grateful? Play the happy co-parent in your redemption story. I want you to stay, Joon-hyuk said quietly. Why? For Lunjile. For all of us. There is no us, Joon-hyuk. She said his name like it hurt. There's you. There's me. There's Lunjile. But there's no us. There can't be. Why not? Because I can't forget. The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. I can't forget that your father tried to kill your daughter. I can't forget that you, before you knew, before you understood, you threatened to erase me from her life. I can't forget the kind of man you were. The kind of man you might still be when the performance ends. Joon-hyuk absorbed that, felt it cut deep. You're right. Amelie blinked. What? You're right. About all of it. He moved to the window beside her, both of them reflected in the glass. I did threaten you. I was that man. Some days I'm still that man. I have blood on my hands that won't wash off. I've done things that should have destroyed my soul, except I wasn't sure I had one anymore. Then why? Because she gave it back to me? Joon-hyuk said simply. My daughter. Your sacrifice. The chance I didn't earn. And I know that doesn't erase what I've done. Doesn't make me good. Doesn't make us possible. But it makes me want to try. Try what? To be someone worth staying for. He finally looked at her. Not just for Lunjile. For you. If you'll let me. Amelie's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I can. Then don't decide now. Don't decide next week or next month. Just, his voice caught. Just don't disappear. Don't take her and run again. Let me prove that I can be more than what I was. Even if you never love me. Even if we never become anything more than co-parents. Just stay close enough that I can try. And if you fail? Amelie whispered. If you become that man again? Then you take her and you run and I won't follow. He said it like a vow. I'll give you resources. Protection. A life where she never has to know what I really was. I promise you that. Amelie studied his face for a long moment. You mean that? Every word. She wiped her eyes. I need space. I can't live here anymore. In your home. Under your protection. Like I'm one of your possessions. Joon-hyuk felt something tear in his chest but nodded. I'll buy you an apartment. Wherever you want. Your name only. Security if you want it, but at a distance. Lunjile can split time between us. Whatever you need. I need to remember who I was before I became someone's secret. Someone's burden. Someone's responsibility. She took a shaky breath. I need to be Amelie again. Not just Lunjile's mother. Not just the woman you're trying to save. You were never a burden, Joon-hyuk said. You were the one who saved her. Who saved both of us. And if you need to leave to remember that, then go. I won't stop you. 2 weeks later, Amelie moved into a modest apartment in Itaewon. Lunjile stayed with Joon-hyuk on weekdays with Amelie on weekends. They established routines, boundaries, respect. It was harder than anything Joon-hyuk had ever done. Watching his daughter leave every Friday. Knowing Amelie was building a life that didn't include him. Feeling the distance grow despite his best efforts. But he kept his promise. Gave Amelie space. Gave her freedom. Gave her the dignity of choice. And slowly, impossibly slowly, things began to shift. Amelie went back to school. Finished her nursing degree. Started working at a pediatric clinic in a low-income neighborhood. Came alive in ways Joon-hyuk had never seen. You're happy, he observed one Sunday evening during child exchange. Lunjile was showing him a drawing she'd made. Mostly scribbles, but she insisted it was him. Amelie smiled. Actually smiled. I am. For the first time in years. She paused. I'm me again. Not running. Not hiding. Just living. Good, Joon-hyuk said. And meant it. Even though it hurt. You deserve that. So do you, you know? He looked up, surprised. What? Happiness. Peace. Whatever this is. She gestured at Lunjile, who'd abandoned her drawing to climb onto Joon-hyuk's lap. You deserve it too. Not because you've earned it, but because everyone does. Even people who've done terrible things. I'm not sure I believe that. Then let your daughter teach you. Amelie's expression softened. She forgives you every day just by loving you. Maybe you could try forgiving yourself. 6 more months passed. Lunjile turned 2. Started speaking in full sentences. Developed a personality that was stubborn and kind and absolutely fearless. She's perfect, Joon-hyuk told Amelie during Lunjile's birthday party. A small affair. Just family and a few of Amelie's nursing school friends. She's chaos in a tiny body, Amelie corrected, watching their daughter smash cake into her face. But yes, perfect. They stood side by side, comfortable in a way they hadn't been before. Not romantic. Not yet. But not hostile either. Just 2 people who'd been through hell and somehow found their way to something like peace. I hired someone to continue investigating, Joon-hyuk said quietly. Everyone who was involved in hiding her. In the accident that killed Ji-young. In the cover-up. Amelie tensed. Why? Because I need to know. All of it. Every lie. Every decision. Every person who knew and said nothing. He paused. And because if there are others, other children, other families, I need to find them. Help them. Make sure no one else suffers what we suffered. That's, Amelie's voice caught. That's good. That's really good, Joon-hyuk. It doesn't erase what I've done. No. But it's a start. Lunjile chose that moment to run over, cake-covered hands reaching for both of them. Yama. Appa. Look. She held up a finger painting, actual recognizable shapes this time. It's us. See? You and me. Joon-hyuk crouched down to examine it. 3 figures. 2 tall, 1 small. Holding hands. It's beautiful, he said, his throat tight. We're a family, Lunjile announced with absolute certainty. Right? Joon-hyuk looked at Amelie. Amelie looked back. Something unspoken passed between them. Yes, Amelie said softly. We're a family. The best family, Lunjile insisted. Can we have more cake now? They both laughed. Absolutely not, Joon-hyuk said. You've had enough sugar to power a small city. But Appa, nobats. How about fruit instead? Lunjile's face scrunched up in betrayal. Fruit is sad cake. That's actually accurate, Emily admitted. Joon-hyuk scooped up his daughter despite her cake-sticky protests. Tell you what, we'll have fruit now, and tomorrow we'll get proper cake. Just the three of us. Promise. Lunjil held out her pinky finger, a gesture she'd learned from Emily. Joon-hyuk linked his pinky with hers. Promise. As he carried Lunjil toward the kitchen, Emily following, he caught their reflection in the window. 3 people. Separate once. Shattered once. Slowly becoming whole. The investigation concluded 2 months later. 23 people had been involved in the conspiracy. 15 were still alive. Joon-hyuk had evidence on all of them. He sat in his office with the files spread before him, feeling the old rage simmer. These people had stolen 7 years from him, had let him believe his daughter was dead, had enabled his father's cruelty. He could destroy them, should destroy them. It was justice. It was vengeance. It was what the old Joon-hyuk would have done without hesitation. Instead, he called Emily. I need your advice, he said when she answered. About what? About whether revenge is worth it when you have everything you wanted anyway. She was quiet for a moment. Come over. We'll talk. He found her at her apartment, Lunjil already asleep in her small bedroom. Emily made tea, something she'd never done in the penthouse, but her apartment had become a space of small comforts. Tell me, she said. So he did. Laid out the entire conspiracy. Every name, every crime, every lie. What do you want to do to them? Emily asked when he finished. Part of me wants to burn them all, Joon-hyuk admitted. Wants to make them suffer the way I suffered. The way you suffered. And the other part? Wants to be the man Lunjil thinks I am. The man who builds instead of destroys. The man who... He stopped, frustrated. I don't know how to be both. How to hold them accountable without becoming the monster again. Emily sipped her tea thoughtfully. What if accountability doesn't have to mean destruction? What else is there? Truth. Public truth. Documentation. Testimony. She leaned forward. Expose them. Let the world see what they did. Let justice systems handle them. And use your resources to make sure it sticks. No cover-ups. No dismissals. No powerful friends making it disappear. That feels insufficient. It probably is, Emily agreed. But it's the kind of insufficient that lets you sleep at night. That lets you look at your daughter and know you chose the harder right over the easier wrong. Joon-hyuk absorbed that. You're wiser than I am. I've had more practice being powerless. You learn different things when you can't just crush people who hurt you. 3 months later, the story broke. Not in tabloids, but in legitimate news outlets. Investigative journalists given access to evidence. Testimony from victims. A systematic pattern of corruption, child trafficking, medical fraud. The public response was volcanic. Criminal investigations launched. Medical licenses revoked. Powerful people suddenly not so powerful. Joon-hyuk watched it unfold from his office, feeling something like satisfaction but heavier. Justice felt different than vengeance. Slower, less clean, more permanent. His phone rang. Emily. I saw the news, she said. You did good. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. But it's something. And sometimes something is all we can do. I want... He stopped, surprised by his own words. I want to be more. Do more. Not just for Lunjil. For other children. Other families. I want to actually matter in a way that isn't terrifying. Then matter, Emily said simply. You have resources. Power. Access. Use them. Will you help me? Silence. Then, what are you asking? I'm asking if you'd consider working with the foundation, using your nursing expertise, helping design programs that actually help instead of just sounding good in press releases. He paused. I'm asking if you'd consider being my partner. Not romantically. Not unless that's something you wanted. But as partners in actually changing things. More silence. Joon-hyuk waited, barely breathing. I'll think about it, Emily said finally. It wasn't yes, but it wasn't no. 2 years after the truth emerged, On Lungile's third birthday, everything changed. The party was bigger this time. Amelie's nursing colleagues, some of Joon-hyuk's reformed executives, children from the foundation's programs, security guards who'd learned to be gentle around kids. Lungile was in her element, directing activities like a tiny general. No, Appa, the balloons go there. Yama, can we have the cake now? Mr. Chin-ho, will you play hide and seek? Chin-ho, feared head of security, looked at Joon-hyuk helplessly. You heard the birthday girl, Joon-hyuk said, amused. As Chin-ho allowed himself to be dragged away by a 3-year-old, Amelie appeared at Joon-hyuk's elbow. She's going to rule the world someday. Probably, Joon-hyuk agreed. Should we be concerned? Definitely, Amelie smiled. But at least she'll rule it kindly. They stood together, watching their daughter turn a sophisticated gathering into cheerful chaos. 2 years of parallel parenting. 2 years of slow trust building. 2 years of learning each other without the weight of fear or desperation. I've been thinking about your offer, Amelie said suddenly. Joon-hyuk's heart stuttered. And, I'll do it. The foundation partnership. I have conditions, but yes, I'll do it. Conditions. Equal decision-making authority. No overruling me just because you write the checks. And we hire more people with lived experience. Former foster kids, survivors, people who actually understand what we're trying to fix. Done, Joon-hyuk said immediately. Just like that. Just like that. You're right. We need people who've lived it. People like you. He turned to face her fully. Thank you for trusting me with this. I'm not sure I trust you yet, Amelie admitted. But I trust who you're trying to become. That's something. Before Joon-hyuk could respond, Lungile came running over, dragging another child by the hand. Appa, Yama, this is Min-jun. He doesn't have a birthday party. Can he share mine? Joon-hyuk looked at the boy, maybe 4 years old, thin, nervous. One of the foundation kids. Foster care. No family. Of course he can, Joon-hyuk said, kneeling down. What's your favorite cake, Min-jun? The boy whispered something. Chocolate? Excellent choice. Lungile, why don't you show Min-jun where the chocolate cake is? As the children ran off, Amelie touched his arm. You're good with her. With all of them. I'm learning. He watched Lungile carefully cut an enormous piece of cake for her new friend. She teaches me every day how to be better, how to be present, how to actually see people instead of just using them. That's, Amelie's voice caught. That's beautiful, Joon-hyuk. He looked at her then, really looked, and saw something in her expression that made his breath catch. Not love, not yet, but possibility, opening. Light where there'd been only walls. Amelie. Not yet, she said softly, reading his mind. Ask me in another year, when I've seen more of who you're becoming. When I'm sure this isn't just performance. When I trust myself to know the difference. And if I'm still here, still trying, still becoming. Her smile was small but real. Then we'll see. But for now, this, she gestured at the party, at their daughter, at the life they'd built from wreckage. This is enough. This is more than enough. Joon-hyuk nodded, accepting it, grateful for even that much. Then I'll ask again in a year. You'd better. They shared a look. Complicated, painful, hopeful. Before Lungile called them over to see her cake sculpture, which looked like a very drunk castle. The party continued. The sun set over Seoul. And somewhere in the chaos of 3-year-olds and chocolate frosting and badly sung birthday songs, Joon-hyuk felt something he'd never expected to feel again. Joy.
Pure, un complicated joy.
1 year later, almost to the day, Joon-hyuk stood in Amelie's apartment. Not nervously, but with intention. Lungile was at her grandmother's. Amelie's mother had finally come to Korea. Reconciliation 3 years in the making. You said to ask in a year, Joon-hyuk said. Amelie looked up from her medical journals. I did. It's been a year. Plus 3 days, but who's counting? You, apparently. She smiled. What are you asking? I'm asking if you've seen enough. If you trust me enough. If you believe enough in who I'm becoming to He paused. To try. Together. Not just as parents. Not just as partners in the foundation. But as what? Lovers? Partners? A couple? Emily stood, moving closer. Say what you mean, Joon-hyuk. As everything, he said quietly. I love you. I love who you are. I love how you fight. I love your strength and your stubbornness and your absolute refusal to accept less than you deserve. I love that you made me want to be better before I even knew what better looked like. And I know, I don't deserve you. Might never deserve you. But I'm asking anyway. Because Lunjile was right 3 years ago. We're already a family. I just want to make it official. Emily's eyes were bright. That's quite a speech. I've been practicing. For a year. For a year. She laughed, the sound breaking something open between them. You're ridiculous. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. She reached out, took his hand. Court me first. Date me. Let me see who you are when you're not trying to prove anything. When you're just you. That's fair. And Joon-hyuk. She moved even closer, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for real. Can you give me that? I can try, he said. Every day. For as long as you'll let me. Then try. She kissed his cheek, gentle and promising. And we'll see where it goes. Where it went over the next year was everywhere. Coffee dates at dawn before work. Late-night conversations in her apartment. Weekend trips with Lunjile, teaching her about her Korean heritage, her South African roots, the bridges between worlds. Joon-hyuk learned to be patient, to listen more than he controlled, to share power instead of wielding it, to be vulnerable instead of invincible. Emily learned to trust again, to believe that some powerful men could choose love over conquest. That redemption was possible even for people who'd done terrible things. That she could be loved without losing herself. And Lunjile? Lunjile grew. Bright and bold and beautiful, splitting her time between two homes that slowly became one. On her 4th birthday, Lunjile made an announcement. I want one present, she declared. Just one. Joon-hyuk asked, amused. Just one. I want Iyama to live with us. In the big house. So we're together all the time. Joon-hyuk and Emily looked at each other. What do you think? Joon-hyuk asked softly. I think, Emily took a breath. I think our daughter is wise beyond her years. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Lunjile cheered. Joon-hyuk felt something in his chest finally settle, the last piece clicking into place. 3 months later, Emily moved into the penthouse. Not as a guest. Not as the mother of his child, but as his partner, his equal, the woman he loved. They didn't get married right away. Didn't need to. The commitment was already there, built slowly over years of trust and work and choosing each other daily. But eventually, on a quiet Saturday in spring, they stood in a small ceremony surrounded by the people who mattered, Lunjile, Emily's mother, reformed colleagues, foundation families, and made it official. I promise to keep choosing you, Joon-hyuk said, holding Emily's hands, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to keep challenging you, Emily replied, to never let you be less than you can be, to love you enough to tell you the truth. Lunjile, flower girl and ring bearer and general of ceremonies, pronounced them officially family now, and demanded cake immediately. They laughed. They kissed. They began the next chapter of a story that had started with a crying baby and a man who'd forgotten how to feel. 5 years after the truth emerged, Joon-hyuk stood in the headquarters of the foundation, now a sprawling organization that had helped reunite over 200 families, reformed adoption practices in 3 countries, and changed laws around parental rights and medical ethics. Emily worked beside him, their combined skills and resources creating something neither could have built alone. Lunjile attended a progressive school that valued kindness as much as achievement, spoke 3 languages, and had already declared her intention to fix all the broken families in the world. Just like Iyama and Appa did? She'd say with absolute certainty. And maybe they had. Not fixed exactly, but healed, rebuilt. created something beautiful from something shattered. Before you go, do me a favor. Hit that like button if this story moved you. Drop a comment about which moment hit you hardest. I read every single one. And subscribe because stories like this, they're what this channel is all about. Real emotion, real stakes, real transformation. On Lunjail's 7th birthday, almost to the day she'd first gone silent in Joon-hyuk's arms, the family stood on the penthouse balcony, watching Seoul's sunset. 7 years of healing. 7 years of growth. 7 years of becoming. Appa. Lunjail looked up at him, her hand in his. Yes. Do you remember when I was a baby and I used to cry all the time? I remember the first time you didn't cry, Joon-hyuk said. When you chose me before I'd earned it. Yama says I was smart even as a baby. Lunjail grinned. I knew you were mine. I was always yours, Joon-hyuk said quietly. Even when I didn't know it. Amelie leaned against his other side, completing their circle. And now, Joon-hyuk said, I know exactly who I am. A father, a husband, a man trying every day to be worthy of what he's been given. He looked at his wife, at his daughter, at the life they'd built. Now I'm home. Lunjail smiled. The smile that had once seemed impossible, now as natural as breathing. We're all home, she said. And somewhere in Seoul's fading light, in the warmth of family chosen and fought for and built from nothing, that was exactly perfectly true. The baby who never smiled had taught them all how to be happy. The cleaner who ran had taught them all how to stand strong. The billionaire who felt nothing had learned to feel everything. Some bonds exist beyond blood, beyond fear, beyond power. Some bonds exist because two people chose each other over and over until choice became truth. And that truth was simple. Love wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. It wasn't earned through grand gestures or perfect behavior. But it was possible. Even for people who'd been broken. Even for people who'd done terrible things. Even for people who'd started as strangers and enemies. It was possible. It was real. And it was enough.